For this entry, I was looking at a WHO article that explains how mental health is shaped by the environment people live in. It talks a lot about things that don't normally come up in regular conversation, like access to services, social support, and whether people even have resources nearby. When I compared that to what my group members wrote, I started to see how there were some similarities. Even though we chose different topics, we all described some sort of barrier that stops people from getting real help. Reading this WHO breakdown of these systems and how they work made it easier to see that self-diagnosis doesn't come out of nowhere. If somebody feels like they can't get support from the system itself, they'll go looking for answers somewhere else. So for me, this article helped me connect our group's discussion with the bigger problem behind self-diagnosis and made the pattern a little bit clearer. For entry 2, I focused on an article from Nationwide Children's Hospital about the risks of self-diagnosing mental health conditions. What stood out to me was how often those symptoms overlap. The article explains that things like stress, anxiety, and even normal mood changes can look similar to different disorders if you only check a short list. It also talks about how social media tends to oversimplify everything, which I can definitely see how that can be concluded. The article basically explains why it's so easy to misread what you're feeling when you only rely on a post instead of a real evaluation. In my research, a lot of self-diagnosis starts with people trying to find quick clarity. But according to what I've been reading, that shortcut can lead to getting the wrong idea about what's actually happening to you. This helped me understand how the appeal of self-diagnosis, because it's a lot quicker. You don't have to worry about if you can get access to a test or if it's correct or the depth of it. You can just get your answer based off of your own interpretation. For entry 4, I was reading an article from Very Well Mind about how social media can sometimes help people with their mental health issues. It talks a lot about the positive side, like how people feel more open to talking about their emotions when they see others doing the same thing. I thought that was interesting because even though I'm focusing on the risks, I definitely see how people could use social media as a way to express things that they would never say out loud. The article points out that online spaces can offer support and make somebody feel like they're not alone, which honestly explains why mental health content gets so much attention. Even if the information isn't always perfect, the feeling of connection means a lot to these people. So this source helped me understand why people trust what they're seeing online and why the conversation is not all negative. For entry 5, I looked at a NAMI article that discusses self-stigma and how it affects the way people handle their mental health. It explains how sometimes someone can start believing negative things about themselves, which makes it harder to talk about what they're going through. It made sense because when people feel embarrassed, they usually avoid asking for help. I know I have on several occasions. The article mentions that self-stigma can make somebody more likely to deal with the things privately, which connects to my topic because a lot of that stigma prevents people from reaching proper help and leads to them trying to handle it on their own. It's not always about trusting social media too much. Sometimes it's that they feel uncomfortable opening up when they feel like they're overreacting about something. And it showed me how much shame plays a bigger part in this than most people realize. For entry 6, I use the NAMI resource that explains what goes into a real mental health diagnosis. It describes how professionals look at a pattern, background, and the daily impact before they're just deciding what somebody might be dealing with. It's a whole process, and it's pretty different than how people compare the symptoms to something online, like a video or a post, or just a quick Google search. The article made it easier to understand why professional evaluations matter. When somebody self-diagnoses, they skip most of the steps that make the diagnosis accurate. That doesn't mean that people are wrong for being curious about their mental health. It just means that the internet can't replace the method that professionals use. So this helped me reinforce the idea that self-diagnosis might not be helpful or might feel helpful, but it doesn't work the same way as an actual assessment.